All right, guys, we're back on Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel. We are here, as promised, with Mississippi State head coach Chris Jans. Coach, our first time catching up with you here this offseason. I know it's always kind of a fun time for you guys, finally getting your group together, kind of seeing what you have, I guess, other than just looking at the individual skill sets. But the chemistry, I know, is something it's always kind of fun for you guys to figure out this time of year. What have you seen so far? I know we're still, less than 2 months away from the start of the season, but just kind of curious what you guys have kind of looked at with this roster so far.
Well, first, Blake, Max, good to see y'all. Obviously, that means it's basketball season. It's here. Fun is probably not the word I would use. I would probably call it stressful, worry. I guess it's different for everybody, but unfortunately, that's where I usually go at this time of year. And September's become, outside of the first 4 weeks of the portal opening, in my opinion, probably the most time-sensitive month for us coaches, because of it all coming together with the recruiting period opening up. And like you mentioned, getting on the floor more with your guys, post summer, when, you're really learning and growing and getting to know each other. But you get into September and, obviously the games are in sight. So your stress level jumps up a little bit and your worry jumps up a little bit, like I mentioned. But for us, it is an exciting time. I mean, for everybody that follows college basketball, and, the calendar doesn't wait for anybody.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to ask you a little bit about getting all the guys in. T. Bartlett, big man, international, Serge McCura, and then even the foot injury, Del Warren getting healthy. All the guys ready. Kind of a two-parted question if you want to take it. One, did anyone step up? You see anything over the summer in those guys' absence that, they stepped up? And also just how has it been having T, McCura, Warren back in action?
With the house settlement and the roster limits, unfortunately, this is the smallest roster that I've been a part of. I can't remember, to be honest with you. This probably is the smallest roster that I've ever had as a head coach, for sure, at any level for that matter. And probably as an assistant as well. I haven't taken the time to go back and really look at it from a historical perspective. But and then when you have, like you mentioned, Delquan Warren broke his foot in May, so he was out all of June and July. T. Bartlett and Sergey Makura both were not here in any parts of June or July. So the number's 12 when you walk into practice every day. And that's without, the ankles, concussion, et cetera, that you get, throughout, an 8-week practice session, if you will. So it was, we had some tough days. We had some days where we had, 7, 8, 9 guys, and obviously those aren't ideal to make progress. I'm glad it was the summer, rather than the fall, or obviously, knock on wood, when the games arrive. But because of that, we had a little bit of a start and stop feel to it. It wasn't as smooth as we would have liked, but that's obviously what every coach talks about, is handling adversity and, the bumps in the road. And certainly that was our approach and our attitude, and our guys handled it probably better than we did, with some internal frustration of not having everyone here. And then when the fall came, like you mentioned, those guys joined us, all 3 of them. So it's been much better in terms of practice and be able to, keep moving towards, the next phase, if you will. But those 3, and certainly more Sergey and T rather than Delquan, because of his year last year with us, have a lot to learn. And, basically we couldn't, wait. That's too long to wait 8 weeks for anyone to arrive. If it had been a couple of weeks, that's a little different story. But they're both great kids, and so far have been quick learners. So hopefully, that they're getting caught up. If they haven't, in due time, they will be.
Coach, Josh Hubbard, I know, we've kind of obviously seen the evolution of him over the past couple of seasons, and I think it's always interesting in this era where it's like we understand the skill set that he has, and I'm sure there's certain things you guys are looking for in terms of the development for him now going into his 3rd season, but it's also within kind of a new look roster and maybe the role and the things you need the most from him on this particular roster. What have you kind of been stressing with him throughout this offseason? And again, what are maybe your expectations just as a coach for him now in his 3rd season there at Mississippi State?
Yeah, I have high expectations for Josh, as high as I've had for anybody in our program. He's heard it from me before, and I've shared it before with other media folks, is he just got to learn from his experiences, for him to be elite for us and even for him individually, buying into being a two-way player all the time, not when he feels like it, not when he's fresh. It probably wasn't his mentality on arrival. And looking back, it definitely wasn't his mentality his first year. He thought he was giving it all. He thought he was a two-way player. He thought, he was defending at the level that's required in this league. And now with him becoming the proficient scorer that he is, sometimes people like to pick on him. And, he has to understand that, he's a target that way. Certainly he's circled in red in the scouting reports of how people are defending him. But on the other end of the floor, he's got to understand that because of that, trying to tag fouls on him, trying to take advantage of obviously his size, and even on film, probably, not being great all the time on that end. And that's probably what I've seen the most growth in, which is obviously what you want, right? We want to improve your weaknesses. And he's been just more mindful of it. He's had a better approach to it. He's been more consistent with his on and off the ball technique, positioning, and more than he ever has. And so that's an exciting thing for all of us. And with him being in the position that he's in, his career thus far, he was part of a two-man group last year with him and Cam Matthews being the leaders of our team. But now with Cam moving on and expiring his eligibility, Josh has definitely taken over the mantle along with Sean Jones, will be a 4-year player for us. And Sean has really stepped up as well. But, Josh was already in the leadership position for us last year, and he's been phenomenal. Not just with his words, but with his actions, leading by example. If it's an early morning situation, he's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and helping with, making sure everyone understand that, this is the way we do it. You need to fall in line. If I'm doing it, he's not saying that, but obviously I'm thinking that, that everyone else should be, being enthusiastic and getting after it as well. So certainly the on-floor stuff, but then equally important, just the leadership position that he has found himself in and how he has taken a stranglehold on it.
Coach, staying on the topic of kind of expectations, it seems like there is a big difference in the national media compared to state fans and the expectations of transfer Amir Ali. Huge second half of the season last year, fantastic analytic numbers, efficiency-wise, he's got the frame. Can you tell us a little bit, why are Mississippi State fans so excited about this Amir Ali kid, and why is the national media not on this? I feel like there's a lot of internal hype that isn't out there nationally.
Well, full transparency, I don't know the difference between the media hype or lack thereof, or our internal fan base or lack thereof, to be honest with you. But like you mentioned, Amir, especially down the stretch, really showed himself and everybody else that was paying attention, what he's capable of. And that was the reason that we got involved, and ultimately excited of when he came to us and decided to, make Mississippi State his next stop. And what everyone can see is easy, right? The size, the beautiful stroke, the efficiency, when he was playing major minutes there down the stretch, and then just his youth, he's still, growing into what he's going to become someday. And he's been great. He's been what was advertised. The things that everybody doesn't see is just the quality of person that he is, and what an unbelievable teammate. Like, he had to sit out the other day for a medical issue. And so, watching film, watching him on the sidelines and how encouraging he was, as a first-year player and only a sophomore, to his teammates that he's still getting to know, and his enthusiasm, and it wasn't over there pouting or sulking because he couldn't be a part of it. He was truly being, one of those guys that every coach, wants in their program and talks about it. But, he's had a good summer. He's getting stronger, which is obviously something with his lift frame that he needs to do. And we're hopeful that, with his experience, playing last year at Arizona State and the level that he played at, that will bode well for him once November comes around.
Coach, I wanted to ask too, kind of following up on Josh Hubbard. I know he'll probably be playing a lot with Epps, and I think, for Jayden Epps, someone else too, that the experience factor, right? I mean, here's someone who I think we looked at the numbers like every year, the 3 years he's played at least 25 minutes a game. Last couple of years, I think he's played 31 or more minutes at his previous stop. And just maybe, your expectations for him being able to obviously play off of Josh and vice versa with those two, and maybe just the pairing that's going to present to you guys. And I think I would, kind of looking back at it too, it feels like one of your more experienced guard groups you've had there, just in terms of maybe the valuable minutes that have been played between this group that you have, even beyond those guys too.
Yeah, I would agree, especially with what you said there at the end about, experienced minutes and what have they done either here or elsewhere in college basketball. And certainly when you're looking at your team, in the spring and who you've signed in the fall, when the dust settles, who you think, and then eventually who actually does come back. And one of the biggest decisions that we had to make is, who are we going to pair, with Josh, and who are the candidates internally or externally that, that are coming back, or that we think we can have a legitimate chance of having them come to Mississippi State. So that was a big decision for us. And, we've been thrilled with Jayden since he's arrived. He's just proved to me and our staff since his arrival of his consistency each and every day. It's one of those guys that, early on I figured out that, we know what we're getting every day, which is something that's reliable, something that's trustworthy. He's still obviously working to get better and understanding, terminology and system, and playing with new teammates like everyone across the country is going through with the changeover in most of the rosters across college basketball. But he is fit in well. I can't speak for him, but I think he feels really good about our style of play, about, what we've done thus far, eventually what his role is going to be for us. And we need him to have a big year. We need him to take some pressure off of Josh, and then we need him, just like I talked about Josh in defense. He's not the longest guy in the world, and neither is Josh. So it's something that they've just got to understand and buy into. And, everybody else on the floor with them, is going to have to understand it as well. But he is just a wonderful human being, and he's worked his tail off, and he's walked in like he's been here. I mean, really has. Like, sometimes I forget that he's only been with us, for 11, 12 weeks. And that's a really good feeling for the coach.
Coach, getting into a little bit of some numbers here real quick. So when I'm looking at tempo, last year's tempo was actually your highest, your fastest, highest, whatever you want to say, of your coaching career. Finished 127th in KenPom. Your first year at Mississippi State, you finished 336th. How much, I was wondering kind of how much was that just, that's what the team, build was, we were playing to our strengths, or is that what we're going to kind of see here now in this offensive scheme?
Yeah, that's a good question and a good observation. And, when you end up finishing last in 3-point field goal percentage in the country in Division I, like we did in our first year, it's probably not a team that needs to be an up-tempo team and have a bunch of possessions. So it was definitely by design. Then last year we made a concerted effort to somewhat modernize, how we play stylistically, from spacing, from tempo, from how we're playing on make and misses, and all the way down the line. And I get a little frustrated at times when people, analysts, et cetera, talk about pace of play and tempo, and they use tempo all the time, and I get that. I don't understand why, but if you really go further and break it down, if you look at SEC games alone, which in my opinion is apples to apples, you average out length of possessions in SEC games for all 16 teams. We were very slow defensively, right? We were 14th in terms of length of possession, which is a good thing. I wish we were, there or even 16th, if you will, trying to put up some resistance to the other team, make them work a little bit longer, et cetera, over the course of the season. And on the offensive end, we were actually second in quickest possession length. But you combine them, and use the word tempo, we were ninth, right smack dab in the middle of the SEC in a very fast league, regardless of that. So, but if you really look at the offensive end, we played extremely fast compared to what we did last year. And, it's what kids always say they want to do. And fans probably want to see it as well. And so we try to adopt that style of play. Will we play as fast this year? I mean, I don't know. That remains to be seen. I know it was fun last year to play that style. I think most of the kids that played in it enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, I've always felt like it's one of the hardest things to get a team to do is to run us unselfishly, because they don't get rewarded personally very often. But it's an unselfish act when you do that and know that, I got to do it every time to be able to get rewarded, once out of 3 or 4 times. But it's a work in progress that way. But time will tell if we're able to play as fast as we did last year.
Max, I had one more talking about the front court, and then I'll wrap up with a quick SEC note for Coach.
Back to back. I'll take it. Yeah. So I did want to talk about. You kind of talked about it a little bit, Coach. You talked about the practice, the number of guys you had. I always wonder, like, how much, because you guys had a lot of front court quality depth. Brandon Walker, I know you just got T. Bartlett hasn't been in there, but got Guy Chol, Quincy Ballard, there's a lot of size, a lot of quality of size here. How has that impacted what you're able to do in practice with these looks, the depth of size that you guys have? Just how's that impacted the off season overall?
Yeah, definitely. It was a focus of ours to get bigger and to have more options. With what we lost last year, we had a lot of holes to fill, and we were going to try to get bigger around the basket for sure. Just because the experience I've had thus far in this league, if you need to have some guys that can shrink the court, that can protect the paint, that can protect the rim, that can go against these other big old monsters that are in this league. And if you don't have, some guys like that, it's hard to compete each and every night, because if you look across the board, almost everybody has multiple guys, that look like that and in their stable, if you will. And so we felt like we needed to do that. It's certainly a work in progress. We've had some nicks and some cuts along the way. But in the end, we're hopeful that we're able to play, all 3 lineups, meaning real, super big, and then certainly traditional, and then small ball, to combat what everyone else will throw at us depending on the situation. But you mentioned some guys, and Quincy Ballard is one that probably has stuck out since his arrival. I mean, he is such a big human being. He's just big, like everywhere. His ankles, his thighs. I mean, he's a big dude, and he's a hard worker, and he knows who he is, and he's been awesome. Like, we're really excited about having him here. I'm already thinking about it. I wish he had more than 1 year, but that's, is what it is. He's got 1 year with us, and we're going to try to make the most of it.
Well, Coach, you kind of answered what was going to be my last question, and that was going to be kind of the key ingredients you've seen in the SEC that you really need. But you said just get some big monsters. Like, just bring some big monsters in, and you can find a way to be successful. I'm sure there's some other things as well. But listen, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you guys are, like I said, it's a stressful time, but you're excited to kind of jump into things here less than 2 months away from the start of the season, and we enjoyed catching up with you.
All right, Max, Blake, appreciate it, man. Enjoy your college basketball season.
All right, there you go, guys. Our conversation with Mississippi State head coach Chris Jans. And Max, I know you're ready once again, as you always are when we do these interviews, to run through a brick wall, talking to the bully ball extraordinaire, who's had some of your favorite bully ball players in the SEC over the past couple of years, Cam Matthews and so forth. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, as we said, we look at this roster, you certainly look at what Josh Hubbard's going to bring to the table, and you mentioned just the quality of the depth with the size in the front court. I think that's a very intriguing element to see how it plays out with Mississippi State. So we will obviously be looking forward to seeing how things unfold with the Bulldogs this season. And as we said, we appreciate Coach Jan's coming on with us, and before we head out, let's quickly tell you about our friends at GameTime Sidekicks, officially licensed stainless steel drinkware, all SEC schools, over 350 more universities as well. If you're a Mississippi State fan, go find the cups they got there. Incredible stuff. Stainless steel sippy cups, tumblers, 40-ounce bottles, and shaker cups, SE16 for 20% discount for our viewers over at GameTimeSidekicks.com. You also get a discount at ROKFORM, ROKFORM.com, the world's strongest magnetic phone case, extreme protection, super strong magnets, rock lock, secure mounting. September, the busiest month of the year with a new iPhone coming out. SEC25 for 25% off. SEC25, 25% off over at ROKFORM.com. And then our friends at HOVI Dry Goods, your new favorite hat. Look no further than the HOVI hats for high-quality headwear with a great fit, unique designs. You'll be able to find the promo code over at HOVI Dry Goods in the description of this video and others here at Southeastern 16. So again, we appreciate you guys watching. Great conversation with Chris Jans, and more on the way here at Southeastern 16 as we get ready for the start of the 25-26 SEC basketball season. Catch any other interviews we've already done. More to come. You'll see Max Barr through a brick wall at some point soon. And we're having a lot of fun here, and hope you guys are as well. Thanks as always for watching. We'll talk to you soon at Southeastern 16.